Aloha everyone, thank you for staying this afternoon. I'm going to talk to you today about some of the predator control work that is being done on the island of Lāna'i to protect endangered Hawaiian petrels, and I do want to acknowledge at the beginning that a lot of the monitoring work has been led by Andre Rain, and we received a lot of really amazing input from Tyler Bogardus on how our predator control program developed. So, as you're probably aware, Lāna'i is one of the main Hawaiian islands. It has about 3,500 residents, and though the forest birds are effectively extirpated, we keep finding little niblets that they're trying to come over, even as recently as a couple of days ago. The island is still home to some fairly large colonies of endangered Hawaiian petrels in the remnant mesic forest on the high part of the island. For those of you who study Hawaiian petrels or who have visited Hawaiian petrel habitat on Haleakala or the Big Island or even Kauai, our habitat, some of it looks a little similar, but it's pretty different. It's all very low. So Lāna'i, the highest point is 3,300 feet elevation. So this is all, this is on the windward side of the island dropping into the deep canyons. Some of the densest concentrations are facing Lāna'i City. So this is looking down into one of the densest core of the Hawaiian petrel habitat. And what you'll see is, while I call this the core of the habitat, you're looking at albizia trees and strawberry guava creeping up. And way out there in the distance, you're looking at the road down to the Manele Bay Resort. So with that fragmentation of the habitat and all of these other non-native species that you see, again, strawberry guava being one of the most significant problems, that helps to facilitate the movement of predators into our colonies. We have essentially no solid remaining habitat. And so we do see that. When I first got there, and everyone else who's worked there in the past has seen rats taking eggs and chicks. And this photo goes around a lot. This was actually taken on Lāna'i of a cat pulling a Hawaiian petrel chick out of its burrow by its head. And finding larger scale kills. This was a couple birds, but along that ridge we found 25 dead birds over the course of 2 weeks. Subsequently removed a number of cats. But all of this depredation by cats and rats, we don't have mongoose and we don't have pigs, so just throw that out there. All of that was leading to extremely low reproductive success, as you might imagine. The number over that 46 is the number of burrows that had known outcome for the year that we knew had a breeding attempt. But that's just over 20% reproductive success, which is miserable for a long-term a long-lived bird. So you have some options. One is to protect known burrows. A lot of people do protect known nests, known burrows. Or we were thinking we could look at what is potentially occupied habitat. How can we protect even the ones we don't know about and use the ones we do know about as our indicators? And that's what we chose to do. When I first started, this was the burrows that were being monitored at that time in 2016. And based on some of the initial song meter monitoring and distribution work that Jay and Fern and others did, we knew there were petrels over a much larger area, and so we wanted to really think about what was probably all of the habitat. And just backing up here, there is Lāna'i City is pretty much like right here, and this is farm roads. And all of the light green is uluhe habitat. That's the remaining native habitat over the Hale on Lāna'i. So now, this is the known burrow's extent, and so obviously sort of that initial idea of a landscape level control was borne out, and I'm gonna, hopefully, not that you need convincing, but hopefully show you why I think the landscape level work has been a really important approach, because it's not just about the birds. I know, people get very upset, but it's also about things like tree snails. So these are two species of endemic terrestrial snail, Partulina variabilis and Partulina semicarinata. Both are endemic to Lāna'i and federally listed and only found in 2 to 3 locations for each. And we have not seen widespread Euglendina rosea on the Hale, and without them, rats are one of their biggest predators. We can build snail jails, or as we like to call them, mollusk mansions, or pakahuli, enclosures to protect the native tree snails, but this enclosure there is 0.1 acres, so it's just not going to protect them across the landscape. And then it's also not even about animals. This is an Abilon menziesii in an ungulate-proof exclosure that still has rat damage to the bark. So we did a large-scale predator control ramp up starting in 2017. We're now, I'm going to show you visually what it looks like over the years in just a second, but just by the numbers, we're now looking at about 145 cat traps over 10 miles of trails, 725 A24s for the seabirds. We're running closer to 900 traps if you're including some of our plant protection and wedge-tail shearwater protection and that kind of thing. And really, I would encourage anyone who's thinking about landscape control to think about the terrain. This is not, those are our basic spacing, but it's not actually a grid. And so this is what it really looked like. So I'm gonna talk first about cats. This is, in all of these slides, the purple dots are Hawaiian Petrel burrows that were known at the time, and in here, the green dots are the cat traps. So this was when I first got there. This was 2016, and you can sort of see one of the big things that we added was this line down here, and you might say, well, that seems kind of silly, that's awfully far from the petrels, but I'm going to show you what our captures looked like in a sec. And so this is what it looks like right now. So there's a lot of traps out over the landscape. And this is what our captures looked like in 2018. The size of the circle is how many cats were caught, and it's in there too. So we had some of the most number of captures on these trap lines that are pretty much outside the colony. And we really had, I mean, some of these trap lines we caught to 2 cats for the whole year. And so you might ask, like, God, did that actually, seems like you're not being very successful because you're not really catching cats in the colony. But this is what our cat visits to burrows looked like from 2016 to 2018 based on burrow cameras. The numbers over it are how many burrows we were monitoring with cameras in each year. So that number has been increasing. So 2018, we were monitoring 167 burrows with infrared Reconyx cameras, and we had 1 visit to a burrow. It walked by the camera and it didn't even go in. So we had 0 depredations by cats in 2018, which was kind of awesome. Unfortunately, you know, this, just to drop back to this, like, there's still cats everywhere else, and we are still catching cats, but I like catching them before they get to the colony. So looking at the same thing at rats, this is gonna look a little bit different because the rats have a much smaller home range. So you gotta trap a lot more densely. So that was 2016, 2017, we did a pretty big expansion. 2018, we expanded even more. 2019, we're now, all of those blue were added this spring. So we are still looking at the rat data because we're again using rat activity at the petrel burrows to assess the effectiveness or the effect on the rat population. But this is some preliminary, so this is looking at Rattus rattus, the black rat, and Rattus excellens, the Pacific rat. This is sort of a coarse measure of just within 25 meters of a A24 and farther than 25 meters from an A24, both species, we see lower activity at burrows that are closer to A24s. We do have a fair amount left to do here to actually look at petrel success based on that. So obviously you can catch as many cats as you want, catch as many rats as you want, but it only matters if you're having an effect on your resource. So last year we were monitoring 370 Hawaiian Petrel burrows. That number's been going up each year as people keep finding more everywhere we look, which is a good problem to have. And so using infrared cameras and song meters, just to show you the distribution over the Hale now, this is one of my favorite things. So this is call rate. The largest circles are 30 to 40 calls per minute based on deep neural network analysis by Conservation Metrics that's using the same analysis that Kauai does. So Hawaiian petrels are widely distributed. This isn't like we're monitoring 3 separate colonies. This is one gigantic colony over the remaining native habitat on the Hale. And so this was that first data point that I showed of 2016 with a reproductive success rate of just over 20%. And with the increase in predator control, and you saw those expansions each year, overall reproductive success, this is again just combined across the colony. What we saw was in areas where we put in predator control, it's getting it up above 75, close to 80% reproductive success, which is what we saw across pretty much all of our monitored burrows this year. Now, if you do just a little bit of a dive into the depredations, because that is still interesting, this is essentially the inverse of the previous graph. So this is looking at the failures each year. The light gray is unknown. So one big thing to note is that as our monitoring has gotten better, the proportion of burrows that failed, but we're not sure why, is lower and lower. And so the cat depredations has gone down significantly in 2017 and down to 0 in 2018. Rat depredations are in black. They went down significantly in 2017. You could say that's up in 2018, but really we just had better monitoring. And so we were able to attribute more of the failures to rats, I think. And again, if this is just breaking down the previous slide into just cats and rats. So you can kind of see what those looked like over the years. Cats went down to 0. Rat depredation went down significantly in 2017. And then 2018, I think it'll be really interesting to look at the 2019 numbers as our sort of monitoring stabilizes to really see how that looks over time. And what we really need to also do is look at spatially where are those depredations happening. In 2018, some of those were Norway rats, which don't seem to like to go into the A24s as much. We hadn't detected them on the Hawley before on any of our cameras. So using different types of traps is always going to be something that you need to think about, because one type of trap generally won't catch every cat. One type of trap in general won't catch every kind of rat. So what is up next? We're going to continue looking, again, like I said, spatially at the predator control grid. Some of the depredations we were seeing this year were along the edges of the grid, where I think there's just not dense enough traps to be having a significant effect on the rats. I think they're still just getting into that area a little bit much, so we can beef up some of those areas. We want to do a bit of a deep dive into our monitoring program and refine it a little bit, because even though finding tons of burrows it's great to know that they're out there, it is really hard to be monitoring 60 burrows and then 200 burrows and then 400 burrows, and we can't double again and maintain the same quality of data we're coming in. So we need to think about how we're monitoring. And we don't need to be harassing that many birds to know, but we want to be able to be effective and understand where we need to do tweaks to our predator control and protection. And then one of the most exciting things is this is going to be breaking ground later this year, a predator-proof fence at Hi'i around 85 acres and about 150 known burrows. That's about 45% of the known burrows that we have. Pacific Rim Conservation did a feasibility assessment a couple years ago, and we now have funding in place and materials coming on island in a couple months. So thank you to everyone who has worked with us. The list is very long. And thank you to everyone who has helped dedicate so much time and effort to help Lāna'i seabirds have a successful future. Thanks.